Welcome back to Squawk Box. Masters champion Rory McIlroy teaming up with TPG to launch TPG Sports. The golf star and his longtime agent and business partner, Sean O'Flaherty, will be serving as operating partners as part of this fund. And I spoke with McIlroy and TPG president Todd Sisitsky. Todd Sisitsky yesterday, and we started by talking about how all of this came together.
At the back end of 23, Sean and I were sort of talking about what was the next step in our journey in the investment world. And we started to talk to TPG, and they were starting to look at the sports space, which has obviously become pretty interesting over the last few years. And we've always had a relationship, but I think the launch of TPG Sports is it's just a formalization of the relationship we've always had.
So I was going to say, you've been at TPG now, what,
22 years.
20 plus years.
Longer than furniture. Yeah.
And you've been through you've invested in a lot of secular growth companies and businesses, and I'm thinking of healthcare and technology. So when did sports hit you as the next thing?
Well, we have a very strong media and entertainment practice. And actually several of the companies we've invested in media and entertainment, whether it's CAA or DirecTV, they're very important and relevant to the sports world. So sports is something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about. But you're right, it has a lot of characteristics that I think are quite similar to the sectors that we've built practices in over the last 2-3 decades. And it has a combination of secular growth, which you mentioned, and also this sort of transformational growth that in many cases is driven by the technology and how that changes the way sports are consumed and the way that fans connect with their favorite stars and their favorite teams. And that's a really interesting set of characteristics.
What kind of stuff would you like to buy? What kind of stuff would you like to find if you could? You already have your eyes on things?
I don't think this is going to be a fund where you're looking at minority passive investments in NFL teams, or it's more can we find interesting businesses that are fueling the growth of sport, whatever sport that is, and be boots on the ground and help those businesses really grow. And that's something that obviously TPG have a lot of experience at, and Sean and I have been able to help some of these businesses that we are involved with. We've helped them grow. So it mightn't be the sexy trophy asset of an NFL team or an NBA team, but the businesses that are sports adjacent that are helping a lot of these leagues and these teams, I guess, grow and bring them into the 21st century.
Where are we in this cycle, if there is one? And I say that because there's a lot of money pouring into the sports world. I would say, what inning are we in? But maybe I'm supposed to say, what hole are we at?
I think we're like third hole.
Third hole?
I was going to say second or third hole.
Yeah.
That early?
I think so, yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. I think we feel like the secular growth that is driving sports is really in the very, very early part of the trajectory here. We feel like it's across sports, it's across geographies, it's going to be, again, accelerated by all the changes that are happening in the way that sports are distributed, the way that they're consumed. The opportunities are really very plentiful. And I think it's fair to say that there has been capital formed. I think our approaches to it is going to be a little bit different.
What's the lesson of TGL, and where do you see TGL now?
I think we were thrilled with the first season of TGL. I think when you're creating a new concept and you're putting it out there into the world for the first time, you're apprehensive. You don't know what the reaction's going to be. But what we've seen is trying to bring golf to a different audience in prime time. The demographic that watches TGL is way different than the demographic that watches regular PGA Tour golf. I mean, the audience is skewing way younger, which is a great thing for the game because the criticism of golf is that it's an old person sport. So to try to sort of bring the age down of the viewership, I think is really, really important, and then hopefully have those fans, as they grow up and they get later on in life.
Did you guys make this deal? You guys made this deal before the Masters?
Oh, way before.
Yeah, way before the Masters.
Yeah. So we started to really talk about it seriously in December of 2023. I went to.
You could have cut a better deal.
I'm very happy with what we're about to do. I went to John Winkelried's house early. It was like March of 2024. I had lunch with him, and I think to have to try to bring this partnership together and to have the support of the entire firm of TPG has been very meaningful to Sean and I, and we're trying to add as much value as we can.
Okay, so I was just going to say, alignment is really it's one of the critical principles in private equity. It's the centerpiece of this partnership. We're all participating in the business in the same way. We're looking at growing it, not raising a fund. We're gonna build a business together, and hopefully it'll last for decades.
Business question for you, post Masters.
Yes.
How has your life changed?
I think when something like the Masters happens and you go from being, one of the most recognized golfers in the world to maybe, one of the most recognized athletes and doing something that very few people in your sport have done, it opens doors, it opens opportunities. But I want to be patient. I don't want to be opportunistic.
How many calls are you getting? What's happened in the last 2 weeks?
There's been reach outs from all walks of life.
Does it feel different?
I think so. I think winning the Masters is its own thing. I think being only the sixth golfer ever to achieve the career Grand Slam, that's very meaningful for me and something that I've been, striving towards for the last decade plus. So it does. It feels like I've sort of went to another category or a different level.
I have a mental toughness question that I think a lot of business viewers will want to understand. What are you doing between holes? Like, what's going through your mind? Because a lot of people think that they're under pressure in lots of what they think of as high stakes business situations. They may not be as high stakes as the Masters. But what are you doing in your head?
The reason that as athletes we work so hard and we practice all those hours is to be in those situations to see what you're made of. I certainly don't want to coast through my career and never. I want it to be hard. I want to know if all that practice has paid off. That's something that is important to me. And I think for me, like, when you're in those situations, everyone's got a target in mind. So whether you have, whether good things are happening or bad things, I don't think that should ever take away from whatever that target is. So for me, going out in the final round of the Masters, I wanted to go and shoot 4 under par that day. And I knew if I shot 4 under par, the likelihood was that I was going to win the Masters. But I didn't make winning the Masters the big thing. I made, can I play this golf course in 4 under par today? So I think I try to simplify it, and I try to just think about that one thing.
And when it's going badly, which was not for you, what do you do and what do you think about?
Well, it was at the start. So I double bogeyed the first hole on Sunday. And my target was still 4 under par, and I reminded myself the previous 2 days I shot 6 under, and I could still shoot 6 under for the last 17 holes. So my target didn't change. Yes, did I get off to a bad start? Absolutely, but it didn't change. I didn't let it change my attitude towards the rest of the round.
You were effectively one of the people who was managing or overseeing the PGA. You're not right this moment. What's going on with the LIV deal? Where do you think this really stands?
We talked about this the other day. I believe that a deal to bring everyone back together would ultimately be beneficial for the world of golf. I think the longer that you have all the best players only playing together 4 times a year is, long term is detrimental to the game as a whole. But at the same time, I look at the momentum that the PGA Tour has this year, and TV ratings are up again, and their best players are winning and creating these storylines. So, I don't necessarily think the PGA Tour needs to do a deal right this minute, but long term for the health of the professional game, I think the two sides at some point need to come back together.
Joe, we also got into a conversation. There's a report in Sportico that there's an effort underway potentially for the players in LIV to be ranked aside effectively the PGA players. That is currently not the case. And I asked him what he thought of that and whether that should happen. He made a very interesting point, which is that LIV would effectively have to change its format so that those players, to make it a full apples to apples. Otherwise, you couldn't really do the entirety of it. But it was an interesting sort of back and forth about that. I also want to show you this.
During the Masters, John Rahm was complaining he had dropped out of the top 100. He's He's top 10 at probably top 5.
Right, there are players who should be ranked, but they can't be currently.
Right.
The question is whether you think LIV really does. One other thing, because we always talk about health, and I wear my Oura ring, and we talk about all this kind of stuff. McIlroy is an investor. It was an early investor, I should say, in Whoop, which is not an Oura ring, but is the one that you put around your wrist. I don't know if you've seen it before. I think we've had the CEO on, and I asked him what kind of changes he's actually made to his life and routine because of it. Take a listen.
The one thing, whether it's Aura or Whoop or whatever it is, learning these habits and these little biohacks to improve your sleep or just improve your lifestyle in general. I've worn my Whoop for nearly 7 years, and it's changed my life.
Oh, hold on. So what? To go to other things, you take creatine or do other?
Yeah.
Give us the full stack.
Okay, creatine. Yeah. So in the mornings, I'll take creatine, branched chain amino acids, electrolytes. If I'm working out, and then I've really upped my magnesium intake.
Okay.
Over the past couple of years. So magnesium is really important.